More than 2 million people get drug-resistant infections each year, and about 23,000 die each year from these infections. Antibiotics no longer treat superbugs, which include CRE bacteria, C. diff, and gonorrhea. And that's a brief look at news headlines for this Wednesday. Coming up in just a moment, we'll have the CBS World News Roundup, market information, and a little bit later on, news of the weird, plus a whole lot more. Right now, though, what do you say we switch things over to celebrity birthdays? And give me a moment to find the music for that particular segment, and away we go.
Damn it, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? Other people have birthdays. Why are we treating yours like a funeral?
Balls, I don't want to be lectured.
Very, very many happy reasons.
And before we get to celebrity birthdays today, as always, if you're celebrating your birthday today, happy birthday. And you share birthdays with these people. James Gandolfini would have been 52 today, of course, in the show Sopranos, where he's most famous, died June 19th. Aisha Tyler of CSI and Talk Soup, and now of the Whose Line Is It Anyway reboot on CW, is 43. And I say, wow, ay caramba, she's a hottie. I have the hots for her, I admit that. Disgraced cyclist Lance Armstrong is 42. And Jason Sudeikis of SNL, Horrible Bosses, We're the Millers, is 38. Those are celebrity birthdays for this September 18th. And again, if you're celebrating your birthday today, happy birthday. All right. I think I forgot to load the Hit Today in History music bed and so forth. Let's see if I did. Give me a moment, friends. I apologize for this. And why am I not seeing it? It should have shown up on the first page, and it didn't. Okay, there's the old one. And where's the new one? Nothing like that. Well, it says it's loaded. Why am I not seeing it? This playlist is nice, but I wish it had better sorting capabilities. Now I gotta look for it. Let's see, maybe I put it up. Oh, there it is. It's there the whole time. Good grief. Alright. Time for Today in History. So let's load that one. This is why I chose an extra long music bed, so that I could keep talking and do this. Alright. Then we'll cut that off. Put this back up here. Alright. I have room for one passenger. One passenger in the DeLorean, because I'm driving. Alright. Get in. Here we go. Buckle up, and away we go. Have you noticed, though, that DeLorean sounds like an old Porsche? Well, on this date in 1851, the first issue of the New York Daily News went on sale at 2 cents a copy. It later became the New York Times, and even later became worth the 2 cents. And that's part of what's going on in Today in History. For the rest, we go to the Associated Press and some overmodulated levels.
September 18th, 1850. In Washington, America's divide between North and South over slavery deepens. Congress passes the Fugitive Slave Act, allowing slave owners to reclaim slaves who escaped to other states. The law helps fuel the outbreak of the Civil War a decade later. 2001. Letters postmarked Trenton, New Jersey that later test positive for anthrax are sent to NBC anchorman Tom Brokaw and the New York Post. The letters are part of the anthrax scare that kills 5 people and infects more than a dozen others just weeks after the September 11th terror attacks. 1975. In San Francisco, newspaper heiress Patricia Hearst is captured more than a year and a half after her kidnapping. Hearst says her kidnappers, known as the Symbionese Liberation Army, brainwashed her into joining them in at least 2 robberies. She spends prison time for bank robbery, but her sentence is later commuted. 1961, in Africa. UN Secretary General Dag Hammarskjöld is killed when his plane crashes in what's now Zambia. Hammarskjöld, who was on a peace mission in what's now the Democratic Republic of Congo, was 56 years old. 1905, actress Greta Garbo, the enigmatic movie star of the 1920s and 1930s, is born in Stockholm, Sweden. And 1970. In London, guitarist Jimi Hendrix, a music icon of the 60s counterculture, dies of a drug overdose. He was 27 years old. Today in history, September 18th. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
All right, Sandy, I want to clarify something on Jimi Hendrix. Yes, it was a drug overdose, but it was a drug overdose of over-the-counter sleeping pills. Jimmy had a lifelong history of insomnia, and he was known for taking sleeping pills. And he took, I think, a toxic amount of sleeping pills the night before he died, and he choked on his own vomit. I know that's disgusting, but when you say he died of a drug overdose, let's be clear on what it was, all right? I'm a big fan of Jimi Hendrix, and I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying that he was a saint by any means. You know, he did some bad things in his life, but let's not jump to the conclusion that, well, he was this a rock star and he did a lot of drugs. Yeah, but some of that was quote-unquote legal, which many people equate to being safe. Drug is a drug, okay? You know, it's medicine if it's sold legally or over the counter, but it's drugs if it's sold illegally, okay? All right, I just wanted to clarify that. What do you have to say about that, Jimmy? Even when he's warming up, he's good, isn't he? All right.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is?
Get out of here, Camel. We got work to do. Well, coming up in a few minutes, we'll have the CBS World News Roundup, as well as the popular tweets of the day, news of the weird, and what's on TV tonight. Right now, though, I have a brand new segment before we get to market information on this Wednesday. A program called The Composer's Date Book. Okay, I'm going to test it out, see how I like it, and then here it goes. And then we'll have market information coming up right after that.
This is the Composer's Date Book for September 18th. I'm John Zeck. On this day in 1918, Russian composer Sergei Prokofiev arrived in America for the first time to give a recital of his piano works in New York. He told interviewers that despite the revolution in his homeland and widespread conditions of famine, Russian musicians continued to work. Prokofiev himself, however, stayed away from his homeland for years. In fact, both his opera, The Love for Three Oranges, and his third piano concerto received their premieres in Chicago in 1921. From 1922 to 1932, Prokofiev lived mainly in Paris before eventually returning for good to Russia. Another temporary expatriate composer, John Leifs of Iceland, also has an anniversary today. On September 18th, 1950, his Saga Symphony was performed for the first time in Helsinki, Finland. Leifs was born in Iceland in 1899 and died there in 1968. He studied in Leipzig, where, in his words, he began searching whether, like other countries, Iceland had some material that could be used as a starting point for new music, some spark that could light the fire. Leif's years in Germany coincided with the rise of the Nazis, who at first found him a sympathetic Nordic composer, but when Leifs married a Jewish woman, he soon fell out of favor with German critics and eventually fled to Sweden with his family. After the war, he returned home, and today is honored as Iceland's first great composer. For more on composers of many countries, go to our website, composersdatebook.org. Composer's Datebook is produced by APM, American Public Media, and the American Composers Forum. reminding you that all music was once new.
I believe that's a keeper. I think we'll keep doing that segment on this show. Got to find a spot for it. Before we get to market information, earlier in the show I said there was a cop car that pulled up outside the studios here. Well, the cop left about 15, 25 minutes ago, thereabouts. I don't know what was going on, but I'm still here. I'm still broadcasting, so I won't be in the slammer tonight. You're going, damn. It's time for the morning market information.
Let's handicap the Federal Reserve's impending decision about economic stimulus. From 8 p.m. in New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the global perspective on business and economics. Round about mid-afternoon Eastern Time today, the policy team at America's central bank is expected to announce a little less stimulus. How much less? We'll see, but there's a consensus in financial markets this morning that the Fed will turn down its bond buying by maybe 10 or 12%. Paul Dales, a senior U.S. economist at Capital Economics in London.
I think the Fed will decide to buy around $70 or $75 billion of assets a month, which would be a small reduction from its current purchasing profile of $85 billion a month. But it's worth remembering it is still supporting the economy, just by less than previously.
That seems to be a consensus view, reducing by about $10 billion. Now, if there's some surprise, upward or downward, you could see markets move.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter that much. We're talking about $5 billion a month or $10 billion a month, which is really not that much when you compare it to the Fed's balance sheet, which is nearing on $4 trillion. But tinkering at the margin with these kind of things can make the markets move. So if it's different, then perhaps there will be some market reaction.
Now, we've been talking cold, hard numbers here. It's also possible that Fed Chairman Bernanke might say something at his news conference after the two-day meeting that gives a sense of how many bonds he'll be buying moving forward. That could also move markets.
Bernanke will try and stress that even though the Fed is going to be buying fewer and fewer bonds, it's not going to raise interest rates anytime soon. So that's the key point, and I think Bernanke will try and stress that.
Paul Dales at Capital Economics in London, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now let's do the numbers. The Shanghai Composite Index went up 0.3%. The FT100 in London right now up 0.2%. S&P Dow and NASDAQ futures are up. The yield on the U.S. 10-year note is at 2.85% going into the second day of the Federal Reserve meeting. Now on to our Social Security numbers and who has them, as we wrap up a summer of worries about the extent to which the NSA invades privacy at the official level. It's always worth a reminder that the 9-digit code that governs so much of our official lives can be vulnerable to non-official hacking if we don't protect it. Patty Hirsch, Marketplace's senior producer of personal finance, welcome.
Hello, David.
So how big a problem is the security issue surrounding our Social Security number? I typically type it in and you only see the last 4 digits, but you think it's still insecure?
Well, even that's a little insecure, yeah. And I know that national security has been trumping personal security recently, but the theft of Social Security numbers is still a very big problem. In fact, in many ways, it's a problem that's gotten worse because fraudsters have found ways to steal specific information about people. So while in the past identity theft might have been random, today they can actually tailor identity theft, stealing a specific person's identity.
Has it gotten easier to do this?
It has. Firstly, because the technology has gotten better. So the hackers have become really, really smart and sophisticated. They're on the cutting edge of technology, whereas the people that they're stealing the data from, which is large corporations generally, just can't hope to have countermeasures in place. You know, they move too slowly to defeat hackers, and it's also too expensive to keep updating systems. Secondly, your data is in so many more places today than it was in the past.
Well, it's true. It is certainly not just with the Social Security Administration or even at the bank, right?
No, indeed. You know, your phone company's got it, your real estate agent's got it, your insurance company. Pretty much anyone who provides a service to you these days will run a credit check on you, which means they hold that Social Security number. And when they're done with those checks, you see, they don't destroy the number. They just hang on to it and stuff it in a database somewhere. And hackers can just jump in there, find that information, take it out and sell it on.
Now that I'm quaking with fear, hiding under the anchor desk, is there anything one might do about this?
Well, you can try to avoid using your number. It is kind of like pushing a string uphill. It's a little difficult, but don't give it up easily. Ask your service providers if they'll agree to use some other method to authenticate you, like a password or a PIN number. The Social Security Administration says that you should interrogate pretty much any service provider, apart from a lender or a government organisation or your employer, who wants to take your number. And insist on asking, and